In two nearby suburbs of Tampa, Florida, two young women disappear within 3 weeks of each other. Their disappearances are eerily similar, but there is no evidence that they are related, despite the circumstances. Veronica Reyes-Diaz went to her sister's house in Plant City, Florida on January 18th, 2020 to pick up her children. She then took them home to their residence in Dover, Florida, just 7 miles away, and put them to bed. She allegedly left the house for some reason after that and was never seen or heard from again. But her car would mysteriously turn up with her keys, wallet, and purse inside. Cieha Taylor dropped off her boyfriend at his home in Plant City, Florida on February 6th, 2020. It was 4:00 p.m., and Cieha supposedly left right after dropping him off. Cieha was never seen or heard from again, but her car would mysteriously turn up with her keys, wallet, and purse inside. Where are Veronica Reyes-Diaz and Cieha Taylor? Everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Where Are They podcast. This episode is going to feature two cases, which may or may not be related, but regardless, we have two young women that have disappeared under very suspicious circumstances. For these cases, we are going to travel to the Tampa, Florida suburbs of Plant City and Dover. Both towns are located just to the northeast of Tampa and about 7 miles apart from each other. Veronica Reyes-Diaz.
I just want to hold my daughter and not let her go. It's not fair. Why can't they find her?
Tina Cortez says it's been 18 months of hell not knowing what happened to her daughter. 23-year-old Veronica Reyes-Diaz tucked her very small boys into bed, then vanished. Her father, Fidencio Minjares, has never given up looking for her.
We were told she took off, and that's impossible. Every chance she got, she was here. She was involved. You know, she didn't take off.
Veronica wouldn't do this. She wouldn't. She loves her babies. And I just want her home. Or at least be able to get answers for her kids. If she's not alive, at least be able to lay her to rest. Those babies deserve it, and she deserves it.
Detectives with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office say it simply doesn't add up. Veronica went out to a restaurant that night with friends. Her sister, Victoria, watched the two older boys. Her infant son stayed home with his dad here in Dover. They say Veronica left behind her SUV with her keys, purse, wallet, and cash inside. Veronica's husband told detectives he was asleep and doesn't know what happened. He is not a suspect.
He doesn't see Veronica. Realizes that that's a little weird. Not weird so much that she's not there, but if she wasn't there, he wouldn't expect to see the car there. Maybe she stayed out with friends or something else like that, but that wasn't the case.
And you have a lot of ponds, little lakes, and we searched around.
Days later, Veronica's parents, along with more than 100 volunteers, searched the woods near her mobile home park. But nothing. Not a trace of Veronica. No answers.
In January of 2020, Veronica Reyes-Diaz was a 23-year-old young mother of 3 living with her husband in Dover, Florida. On Friday, January 17th, Veronica made plans to go out with a friend for the night. She would take her 2 older children, aged 4 and 5 at the time, to stay with her sister in the neighboring town of Plant City. And her husband was going to stay home with the baby, who was just about a year old. Veronica and her friend did indeed go out that night, and her friend would bring her home around 1:15 in the morning. Veronica then went to her sister's house to pick up her children right after. And I don't know why she had to pick him up at that hour and couldn't just let them spend the night, but she did drive out to Plant City, pick up her 2 boys, and make it back home. She did tuck her boys in to bed when she got home, but what happens after that is the mystery. We don't have exact confirmation of what time this was, but it had to be around 2 o'clock in the morning or even after 2 a.m. by now. And for some unknown reason, Veronica left her house that night and didn't return. The next morning, Veronica's husband woke up around 7 a.m. and Veronica didn't appear to be at home. He did see her Chevy Yukon sitting in front of the house, and when he checked it, he found the keys in the ignition and her wallet with cash sitting right on the seat. He asked their oldest child, a 5-year-old son, if he knew where mom was, and all the boy could tell him was, "I don't know. She went outside." He knew at some point she picked up the kids, tucked them in bed, and then the boy heard her go outside. The car itself yielded very few clues. Some reports said the car battery was dead, and others said the car was just turned off. What's interesting is that the keys were found in the ignition. But there was no sign of Veronica or any clues where she may have even gone. Over the weekend, the family tried to reach Veronica with no luck. They thought maybe she just needed some space or needed a breather. But by Monday, when her phone started going straight to voicemail, her family filed an official missing person report. There wasn't much to go on. They could work her timeline down to bringing the kids home, but that was really all. They did have one neighbor in their mobile home park that was able to show surveillance video of Veronica getting dropped off at 1:15 in the morning by her friend. But that was all they really knew. Did she leave her home again after putting her 2 older kids to bed? Did she leave with somebody? But who? There's no indication that there's any other surveillance footage, which is interesting. If somebody did have a Ring camera or security cameras that caught activity at 1:15, it should have caught activity later. The whereabouts of Veronica Reyes-Diaz are a mystery, and her disappearance makes no sense to family and friends. Cieha Taylor. 3 weeks later, on February 6, 2020, law enforcement found an abandoned car still running, sitting on the railroad tracks in Plant City. Plant City is about 7 miles from Dover, Florida, where Veronica lived and had just disappeared from. Authorities were baffled, however. The car belonged to Cieha Taylor, but there was no missing person report filed on her, no information on the car at all. So law enforcement decided to just move the car to the side of the road in the meantime and park it there. The vehicle had been found running with the door wide open, a cell phone found on the ground, and a wallet found on the front seat, but nobody around the vehicle. 28-year-old Cieha Taylor had vanished. Cieya's parents were notified on February 9th, 3 days later, that her car was abandoned, and it was then that they realized that Cieya was missing. It was her parents that filed the official missing persons report. So Cieya's family and investigators tried to backtrack and learn what led up to Cieya's disappearance. Cieya's family was upset that law enforcement didn't do more when they originally found the car, but their reasoning was there were no red flags because she hadn't been reported missing. They have been very active and forthcoming since, and they have worked Cieha Taylor's case, but I have to say, I completely understand the family's point of view here. A vehicle is found on the railroad tracks, running with a car door open, money inside the vehicle, and that's not a red flag that something is wrong? Anyways, they are able to learn that on February 6th, Cieya took her boyfriend to his friend's house that day around 4:00 p.m. This friend lived about a mile from where her car would be found. She dropped him off at that home and was apparently seen by his friend and his friend's father. And Cieya then called her friend in Lakeland, Florida. She was planning on heading over to that friend's house and staying the night while her boyfriend was staying in Plant City. But things would not work out as planned. Her car was discovered on those railroad tracks at 7 o'clock p.m., just 3 hours after she dropped her boyfriend off. And her family said they were calling Cieya on and off for the next 3 days, and no one could understand where she was and why she wasn't picking up her phone. Cieya always had her phone with her. And ironically, it wasn't the police that alerted the family about Cieya's car. It was actually Cieya's boyfriend's mother who drove by, saw Cieya's car on the side of the road, and called her son. He started calling around looking for Cieya. He called her friends and then finally her family. And it was Cieya's family who went to get her car and bring it home to their place. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Homeland Security, and even Cieya's family conducted many searches in the area where her vehicle was found, and around the area where her boyfriend's friend lives. Law enforcement also brought in search dogs, helicopters, but nothing has ever come from those searches. But things became even stranger on February 26th when Cieya's shoes were found sitting on a drainage pipe on the side of the road, right near where her car had been found. And there was also a missing persons poster of Cieya on the pole nearby where those shoes were found. The area had been searched many times before, so the family believes that the shoes were put there afterward. And law enforcement did start receiving a lot of tips about Cieya, possible sightings in nearby towns and cities, but nothing that ever led to Cieya. Her boyfriend, his friend, and his friend's father were also interviewed, but the family was never made aware if anything of value ever came from that interview. Cieya's family did look through Cieya's phone when they got it, and her last text to her boyfriend stood out to them. Her text to her boyfriend said, quote, "So you are going to send your white supremacist friends to take care of me?" End quote. That doesn't look good, but authorities have never found any evidence to implicate her boyfriend in anything involving her disappearance. The family has also worked tirelessly to get Cieya's story out to the public. They created a Facebook page for her that's very active and still very active today. They contacted every news outlet they could think of, podcasts, television shows, anyone they thought might be able to help them. And they did have some luck. Cieya's story did get out there, but still no sign of Cieya was ever found. So why do some people wonder if Cieya and Veronica's stories might be related? There isn't anything specifically that links them. There's no DNA, there's no forensic, there's no eyewitnesses. But there are some interesting similarities. Cieya is 5'6" tall, biracial, with brownish reddish hair. Veronica is 4'11", Hispanic, and has brownish hair. However, when you put their photos next to each other, they do have a similar look. In fact, shortly after Cieha Taylor went missing, her sister came across a photograph of Veronica in another missing woman's report in the newspaper, and she said, "She looks more like Cieya than I do." And that photo of 23-year-old Veronica Reyes-Diaz put right next to Cieya's photograph. You would think the two were related. There's also the fact that their vehicles were found with their belongings inside, including their keys. They also disappeared just 7 miles from each other. Their disappearances occurred only 3 weeks apart. It's understandable that some, especially those that live in the Dover and Plant City areas, are raising eyebrows. And remember, Veronica had been in Plant City just before she disappeared, picking up her children. Was there a possible predator out there? Did someone see her and follow her home that night? Both of these disappearances happened in early 2020, and neither woman has been found. So what happened to Veronica and Cieya? Veronica is described as 4'11" and weighing around 150 pounds when she disappeared. She was 23 years old and would today be 25. Veronica is Hispanic and has brown hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a gray and white long-sleeved crop top, jeans, and blue sandals. If you have any information on the whereabouts of Veronica Reyes-Diaz, please contact the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office at 813-247-8200. Cieha Taylor is described as 5'6" tall and weighing around 160 pounds when she disappeared. She was 28 years old at the time and would today be 30. Cieya is biracial and has brown hair and brown eyes. She was last known to be wearing a blue, gray, red, and white striped short-sleeved mini dress, tan knee-high boots, and maybe a pink cardigan sweater. She does have several tattoos, which include an infinity symbol on the left side of her upper chest, 2 X's on the back of her shoulder, a rose on the inside of her forearm, a sun on her upper right thigh, and a ladybug on the outside of her left calf leg. If you have any information about Cieha Taylor, you are also asked to contact the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office once again at 813-247-8200. So I'm curious, do you think these cases could be related, or is this possibly just a coincidence? Thank you so much for listening to the stories of Veronica and Cieya. These young women need to be found. It's been 2 years too long for these families. We will be back again next week with another Unsolved Missing Persons episode. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.